You're watching the New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another on-the-road episode of the New Stack Makers. I'm your host, Heather Joslyn, editor-in-chief of the New Stack, and we're coming to you today from the lively and a little bit noisy floor of KubeCon plus Cloud Native Con Europe here in London. And today we're going to talk about, what else would you talk about at KubeCon? Kubernetes. And we're specifically going to talk about the company Devtron and how it makes it easier for organizations to adopt Kubernetes faster. Kubernetes is notoriously complicated as it scales. We'll dig into some of the reasons for that and the impact it can have on your organization and how Devtron is tackling that problem. We're being joined today by Rajesh Razdan, who is co-founder of Devtron. Hi, Rajesh.
That's right. Thanks for having us.
Great. And we're also going to be joined by his Devtron colleague, Abhinav Dubey, solution architect at Devtron. Hi, Abhinav.
Thank you for...
Rajesh, I tried to give the audience a little background on Devtron, but can you fill in the story for me a little bit? What does it do, and why did you decide to found it 6 years ago?
Well, I think you started the right conversation. This is KubeCon. I think Kubernetes was found like 10 years back, but I think one thing which is constant when we started in 2019 and today is the complexity. That remains the same. Mm. So we still feel that while it's very widespread, there is still a lot of impedance mismatch between the two predominant users of Kubernetes, for example, the developers as well as the DevOps folks. There is still this huge cognitive load that folks have to carry. So we still have the promise and continue on that journey to sort of simplify that for folks. So we've built, and what we're continuing to build with various versions and iterations is a modern DevOps platform, which is Kubernetes heavy and Kubernetes native. So we kind of, again, the promise becomes very central to our existence is how do we solve simplifying Kubernetes for all the users in the Kubernetes supply chain or modern deployment supply chain, which is literally the developers and platform engineers and SREs going further.
Okay, and definitely that complexity problem, the cognitive loads, especially on developers who don't necessarily want to know a lot about Kubernetes. They want to build things, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at historically, I mean, developers started with, let me do code freely. And that's what we need to be bothered about. So I think anything which is outside this purview, and these personas of dev and ops was built as the whole modern software development was brought along. So I think those added complexities were not very native to their line of work. Mm-hmm. And that is what we wanted to sort of bring forth and sort of say that, hey, leave that complexity to us and abstract that complexities completely by having a very low code, no code kind of an interface. You just focus on your main coding, and the deployment work heavy, sort of load can be taken on by a platform like this. And the second portion of doing that was that both the user personas, which is DevOps and the developers, are looking at the same window of work. So it's like the same workbench, and you're looking at different sides of the window, trying to solve different use cases, but at least the dashboard is the same. So imagine in a collaborative setup how much easy it becomes to sort of have both sets of users talking about with various sort of workloads, and they talk about in a very collaborative fashion. And Devtron offers you that sort of podium to sort of do that.
Okay. What is it about Kubernetes? The whole time I've been in the tech field, involved in the tech field, I've just heard about how complicated Kubernetes is. What is it about Kubernetes that makes it so complicated?
Let's go to Abhinav to sort of solve that. I think he's more suited, and I don't want to steal his thunder.
So when we talk about Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes is great. It has been here to stay, right? So Kubernetes provides the underlying infrastructure, but from a developer point of view, if you see that, right? So I'm meant to write code, a good quality of code. I don't have time. I already have enough things in my plate. I don't have enough time to learn one more orchestration system, right?
Yeah.
Why do I want to go and learn kubectl commands when I do things in a low code or easy code way, right? So Kubernetes by default, again, the architecture that it has, if you see the control plane, the worker plane, the components within the control plane, there are 5 different components within the control plane, right? The worker plane itself, the communication between control plane and worker plane, the API server, a lot of things are being involved in the Kubernetes ecosystem, even in the Kubernetes architecture as well, right? So by default, it's complex. That is the primary reason why Devtron is born, as Rajesh already talked about it, right?
Can you talk to a little bit about how Devtron manages these challenges in a sort of a, in a low code,
No code basis. Yeah.
no code
So
basis?
essentially, just going a little deeper into that, the idea is the first problem was that a lot of cognitive load between the functions of DevOps and the platform. So we sort of eradicated that function first, and we said that, hey, is there a single worker plane or control plane where we can bring both of these functions together? And by having plugins and by having a very seamless integration with all the subsystems that you're dealing with different toolings, etc. So can we all solve it and have an integrated sort of like a Swiss military knife example? I keep giving that example all the time. One of the big challenges in modern deployment process is that you deal with so many tools today. And industry is like completely infested with this tool sprawl and saying that, can we cut down the tool sprawl? So Devtron is like this one Swiss knife where you can cherry pick what functions are you using, etc. And so developer can cherry pick some of these, DevOps can cherry pick some of these functions, whether it's deep security integrations with all other things which are not which are outside the purview of Devtron, are also sort of allowed through an API server or through an API integration aspect where you can literally play with all of those things. So that makes the positioning in the modern deployment cycle or development cycle very unique. And you're trying to see that, hey, multiple things can be achieved by using this common operating system of sorts, if I may, which connects these multiple dots together.
So it doesn't reduce the ability of developers to use the tools that they prefer.
So it reduces amount of tooling that you have to go outside the system to do it. It reduces the interaction, a lot of back and forth between, hey, I've done my job, why don't you do this? There's a lot of handover between these two guys.
Yeah.
So what we've tried to do is that codified all of that within the platform so that you don't have to, even if somebody goes and somebody junior joins in the team, which is very relevant, right? As a senior associate or a developer, I would always be a little reluctant to sort of give access just in case somebody does something wrong.
Right.
So I think all of those errors and things which can go wrong have been captured in the system. And we have ring-fenced all of those use cases and trials and tribulations so that we give a more error-free experience for not just the stage and QA where the developers are, and the production, which is the work area of a DevOps. So both of these are well captured into the system.
Just think of it as an intelligent layer on the top of Kubernetes. Just one single pane of glass for everything.
Absolutely.
My colleague Job Jackson stopped by your booth at the last KubeCon in Salt Lake City, and he wrote about the launch of Devtron 1.0, which included an extensible Kubernetes dashboard. We'll link to that post in the show notes that go with this video. But is there anything about Devtron 1.0 that you'd especially like to highlight? Especially any new features that, if there's anything being rolled out at this conference or anything that's more recently been rolled out since Salt Lake City.
So 1.0 and the last KubeCon in Utah was largely around highlighting the dashboard aspect of it, which allowed us to give more flexibility in the hands of developers, because what we said was Devtron is so modular, which brings about my earlier point of definition that even if you're using different build and deploy systems, you can still use the dashboard, and it's very uniquely a multi-cluster kind of hybrid cluster dashboard. Having said that, what we added more to that was there's something called as Resource Watcher, where we can plug in various incident managers into that, which sort of helps you log and track various kinds of anomalies into the system. Maybe Abhinav wants to double click on that a little bit more from
So 1.0 was more of a benchmark of Devtron, right? So the commitment to Kubernetes ecosystem and the cloud native ecosystem. So that's like Rajesh mentioned about Resource Watcher, right? It is just one of the features that came up in 1.0, which allows you to integrate with any of the incident management platform. Now you'd be able to do the auto remediations on Kubernetes, right? Just think of it as something broke down in your cluster, right? On the basis of those events, you can directly execute a runbook which is running something elsewhere. Maybe you were using Zenduty or any other tool for that, for incident management, and now you are able to execute that as well, automatically remediating all those issues. Talking about the recent time, just like you mentioned about, right? What's new in this conference?
Right.
So recently we have launched Argo CD integration directly. So you are using Argo CD for the deployments, right? We all know a lot of. We all know that continuous deployment tool is way beyond just Git syncing, right? A lot of things is being involved around the ecosystem, automatic rollbacks, security policies, right? So now in this in this conference, in this KubeCon, we have launched a new feature wherein you would be able to integrate your existing Argo CD directly within Devtron, and you'll be able to have all the operations on the top of it. You get the entire continuous deployment ecosystem within Devtron now, directly with integrating with your existing deployment solutions as well.
And again, this is kind of just to add to what Abhinav is saying, that Argo CD is a very popular open source platform. So sort of building more plugins on top of Argo CD sort of allows us more abstraction on top. And a lot of users, because of being open source, they give us a lot of feedback that things that they're not able to do on Argo CD, they are able to do now on Devtron. And so that's a huge leg up from where we started, and that sort of helps us more into the journey or the promise of more modern deployments.
I'm curious about, we write about a lot about platform engineering. I'm curious about, platform engineering was in some ways designed to help. We talked about the cognitive load that developers have around Kubernetes. It was designed kind of to, as almost like a workaround, I believe, around having to know a lot about Kubernetes if you're a developer. How might Devtron fit into an organization that's trying to adopt platform engineering?
So I think that's a very, very good question, Heather. So platform engineering is actually traditionally a lot about how you handle various modern interfaces. And as the organizations grow from legacy sets to more modern theme sets, that's one point. The second point is, I think the promise of platform engineering or an IDP was to let you choose the blocks that you would want in a very unopinionated manner. And again, as a function of reducing the promise of the whole cognitive load, so that different people, while building a perfect or near perfect platform platform inside the setup, are actually using different interfaces. So Devtron inherently comes with multiple such building blocks, where we are talking about having templates, cataloging, etc., where you can actually choose templates what to sort of build those. You can clone applications. You can have environment cloning as well. They are ready-made environments that we provide, and then I can very quickly look at those templates and start building my own IDP or start my own platform engineering journey. So I think we feel we are amongst various approaches that various folks are taking. We are also most in our own ways, relatively speaking, very well suited to give the promise of a perfect platform or near perfect platform inside an enterprise, and call it an IDP of sorts. The way these interfaces talk to each other, etc. I think those are our approach to defining the near perfect platform. At the same time, we have kept some loose ends deliberately by saying that every enterprise's journey of making their unique platform cannot be one shoe fits all. So you give that non-opinionated way to cherry pick and give that glue which sort of binds all of these together to reach that perfect IDP or a platform for your organization.
So, you seem like you
add to that?
wanted to add to that.
So for the platform engineering, right? So now things are moving up in the platform engineering space. Personally, what I think is that platform engineering has been there for a while. It's not a new term, right?
Right.
It's just reinvented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now people are more talking about it. So the whole purpose of platform engineering was to ease the task, right? Abstract the complexities,
Right.
take out from developers, right? So that they can become self-sufficient, right?
Yeah.
They can do their own things. They don't need to go and ask to DevOps teams for deploy my code. It's been done, right? They don't need to do that. Eventually, the entire process will hamper. The entire delivery will hamper with that, right?
Right.
So platform engineering has been there for a while. It's just reinvented right now, and a lot of attractions are going on in the platform engineering space. And that's what Devtron has been doing, just like Raj mentioned about, right? A lot of things like application cataloging, or if we talk about the integration, as I mentioned in the Devtron 1.0, right? Directly integrating with your incident management platforms, or directly integrating with your existing observability stacks. So there is a feature in Devtron wherein you can directly import the graphs and see it in the dashboard itself. The crux is that having those kind of flexibilities which allows you to integrate with any tool in the ecosystem. So cloud native is vast. It's very big. As an ambassador, I'm saying hardly I have used 15 or 20 tools in the cloud native ecosystem, and then to 5 or 10 tools in production environment. I haven't explored all those graduated or incubating projects till date. Again, it's something in my wish list, but I haven't done yet. So there are a lot of tools. The idea is that if that platform is flexible enough that it can integrate with your needs, then it's a platform engineering tool, right? Then it's an IDP. That's how I think of an IDP from my personal experience.
Let's talk about also KubeCon. We're very much about open source here. There's been it's been an interesting couple of years in the open source space. You've seen companies that had a product that was open source, make it more, put it behind more restrictive licensing. There's always tension between wanting to have the community get involved in your product, and adopt it quickly, and the need to make money. I mean, as you're co-founding you've co-founded a company that's has open source product. What are your thoughts about that tension between open source?
So I think this is a good tension, and we like this tension, quite frankly. The simple reason is the world is divided between how to use and interface a product. As a philosophy, we believe open source, for us particularly, gives us a lot of massive feedback at scale. At the same time, I think it shortens the feedback cycle for us, because otherwise it's essentially a very different approach, a commercial-led approach of reaching out to folks.
Right.
I think by most of our features that have shaped the company over the last 5-6 years has been because we were open source, and we continue to be open source because we always felt once somebody likes the product for a task A, B, and C, and when it comes to an enterprise using the same task at a level where there is a lot of governance required, security required, etc., there is more seriousness that you would want to sort of exercise there, and that is where the enterprise features or the enterprise role comes in. We're not bothered, with whatever is happening or has happened in the open source field. I think even if I go deeper into the AI world of things, while there are promising private companies doing stuff, there is always few outliers, which make it a very healthy competition for even the folks that are building large companies to sort of have that cycle running. So I think it's very important for a cohesive ecosystem, and we'll continue to support open source very heavily in terms of how we would like to see developers or folks who are learners actually interface with us while building some serious enterprise grade ring fences around that will fall always under the enterprise ambit.
Just to add on what Rajesh talked about, right? So open source does give you those kind of feedbacks. So we have been working on taking feedbacks and interviews of the OSS users, and trust me, I'm amazed to see the way people are actually using it. Even the ways I couldn't think of, the use cases I couldn't think of that one can be leveraged, people are actually using that. So that's what the power of the community. So you will be always amazed to see the way people are actually using your product.
If people are using it because they love the product and they want to make it better.
Your guards are down. You're saying that, come guys, see what we have built, give us feedback. It's not that something that we have built, but there is always that next level that we can build. There's the jump is all the way very easy in that sense.
Yeah. One final question. Can you give us a glimpse of the roadmap for Devtron in the coming months, the rest of this year, some sort of?
I think one of the things that we've been investigating a lot and investing in a lot is how the modern deployments, because what AI has done is essentially given a lot of velocity to the deployment, development cycles. I think we're trying to match the same with the deployments. So we're moving, reasonably fast in the direction of how an agentic kind of a setup solves that by using various things like MCP is being talked about a lot. So we're investing and investigating a lot in that direction. Again, the point being, do we match the same deployment velocity as what has been unleashed by a lot of extra development work, velocity or acceleration into the AI world? And we feel that a lot of this bottleneck will come to the deployment side of things as well. So if we create a framework where all the mundane jobs are literally done in manner of templates. And so there is a persona of a DevOps, there's a persona of platform engineer, there's persona of an SRE. Can I literally short circuit that tasks into what we have built already? Then I think the next 6 to 12 months will look dramatically different from Devtron's point of view, and that is one area that we are very, very interested in and trying to investigate more into it.
And that seems in line with a lot of, everyone is talking about agentic AI. Everyone is trying to figure out what it means for them and what it's going to mean for their customers.
So I think you're right, Heather, and I think the winners would be the ones who are on solid fundamentals, how you're approaching that thing. You know, if you're going by the fundamental approach of understanding this problem at the source, then just automation becomes just a function of that.
Yeah.
So that will, set the difference between what will have the haves and the have-nots, essentially.
Okay, so I think, and that seems like a good place to wrap up. We'd like to thank our guests, Rajesh Razdan and Abhinav Dubey of Devtron. Thank you very much for joining us today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And we'd also like to thank all of you for joining us today. This has been Heather Joslyn for On the Road, the New Stack Makers. We'll see you next time.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.